I'm going to look at Hasan's appearance on the Iced Coffee Hour. Get a little bit of Marx Maxing going, see what it takes to be a good socialist these days. I've seen a few clips from this show here that he did with these guys, and looks promising for some more locale content, so we are going to go ahead and take a look at that. And I'm certainly not watching all of this. I'm going to watch a little bit of the intro here and then move into where he starts talking about like champagne socialism and what he does with his money, his retirement plan, etc. So it's not going to be this full 2.5 hours here, but let's get into it.
So it's interesting. We offered you a Starbucks, and you said you couldn't drink it, and here I am with the Starbucks.
You said you'd get canceled.
I would. Well, it's kind of funny that you guys immediately, as soon as I came in, you were like, "Do you want this water?" I was like, "No, I'm good."
It's not a setup.
You'll notice that the scene is like blurry here in the left, and I saw later on where they said that they had dropped one of their cameras before this, and that was the cause of that, and they are working to get that fixed. That bothered me at first, but
By the way, this
no,
is not
no,
on
I know.
purpose.
Which is funny because I'm drinking a Mountain Dew is on my Pepsi.
Yeah.
I was in Australia
that's good. Pepsi products are safe, I guess.
like last week. It wasn't even an altercation. It was like a fan who came up to me and was like, "Oh, you're drinking Coke Zero. You need to stop drinking Coke Zero on stream. Like, you support BDS, which is boycott, divestments, and sanctions against Israel. Why are you doing that? Like, are you a supporter of Israel? Like, why are you doing that? Like, be a better ally to Palestinians." And then I thought that was like a random, it was like a quick back and forth. I was just like, I laughed it off and I was like, haha, okay. Like, oh, is Pepsi okay? I was joking around because it's not actually a part of the official BDS sanction list. Like any other sanctioned companies, like Coca-Cola is not one of them.
Yeah, I haven't really been able to find a good reason to boycott Coca-Cola specifically for Palestine, for Palestinian liberation. They have a plant in Gaza that was started up by a Palestinian businessman. They have invested heavily in Gaza. They are one of their largest employers. They have donated Coca-Cola money to help get them clean water. Yeah, I mean, obviously you're going to have, it's a huge corporation. It's not perfect by any means, but like there's really no reason to be boycotting it for Palestinian liberation. So that was silly, and yeah.
And I didn't want to get into a debate on stream with a fan, you know what I mean? I feel like that's just long and convoluted for no reason. But then they clipped it, and then they posted it on Reddit and posted it all on Twitter, and they were like,
the funny thing is though, is that in this clip here, you can see him later on while he's walking around. He's actually wearing shorts that have 2 McDonald's patches on them. And McDonald's is on the official BDS list, which is funny. And I think they were just like shorts from like a rugby team or something, but still, like the fact that that's what she decided to point out is the Coke.
Hasan is like, look at him, like woke guy gets owned by his own audience. Like, this is how goofy the left is and blah, blah, blah. It made it to Sky News Australia. Rupert Murdoch owned, just like Fox News. Sky News Australia made that into news. It has like 750,000 views on YouTube right now.
So what was like the agenda with Sky News? Like, why?
I mean, it was a little bit silly. I mean, it was funny to watch, but I think it is a good jumping board to talk about the importance of being well educated in your activism, being knowledgeable, and being strategic in your boycotts and targeted. Because doing stuff like this, focusing on things that are not actual boycotts, like Starbucks is not a part of the BDS list. There's no boycott against Starbucks for Palestine, and there's not really a good reason to do so. There is a boycott against them for workers' rights violations, and the BDS supports that boycott. So I mean, there's good reason to boycott Starbucks, but not for Palestinian liberation, and certainly not to be bashing people who happen to choose to grab a Starbucks drink. Like it's just totally unproductive.
Why did they turn that into news?
Oh, they were like, lefties losing it. This is Hasan, dude. He's in Australia. Like, we don't have enough crazies in the country. That's what they were saying. I think the larger agenda overall is to just be like, let's not talk about Israel-Palestine. Let's talk about how crazy the left is. Why are they crazy? Because, you know, they want you to stop drinking Coke and don't talk about, you know, anything that's going on in Gaza. Just talk about how crazy the left is. I think it's just a distraction to like move discourse in a different direction.
One thing to change the pace is we've had a broad range of people on our podcast recently, and this question is really interesting because we get a wide variety of answers based off of the person's politics usually. If you're poor in America today with no dependents, no disability, cognitive or physical, and you're between the ages of 25 and 60, is it your fault?
No. What do you mean? Wait, sorry. Say it again.
If you're poor.
If you're poor?
Between the ages of 25 and 60, no disabilities, no dependents, cognitive or physical, is it your fault?
No.
And why?
We are a product of our own material conditions, our environment. And I do think that there is severe income inequality in this country still. There's not a lot of, I mean, there's a lot of racial inequality in this country still. I don't think that someone who was born into like drastically different conditions, like in Flint, Michigan, or in Detroit, or in, you know, forgotten parts of the country, like the Appalachian region, like in West Virginia. I don't think that person's starting point is identical to someone who grew up in a nice neighborhood in Connecticut and had access to public schools or even private schools, and their parents were able to afford healthcare. Their parents were able to afford the best education for them possible, a middle class education, but still a much better one overall. So I think that there's that aspect to it. There are a lot of people who do not get that leg up that shouldn't even really be a leg up. It should be the bottom, basically, like social safety nets that are offered to every single person unconditionally so that we can be a more productive labor force overall. And then beyond that, I think we're all victims of circumstance in one way or another. And I think poverty in that regard is almost always systemic.
So whose responsibility is it for these people to not be poor?
Oh, I think it's the government's responsibility for sure. I think it's a policy failure overall.
I think it depends on what your definition of poor is, like not being able to survive, or like you know, what's the definition of poor here? And yeah, I think that I would agree that the government has some responsibility to make sure that everyone is able to have some sort of baseline standard of living.
I mean, poor is relative, obviously, because a poor person in America is infinitely better off than a poor person in Rwanda, right? So if we're talking about poverty in America, if we're talking about that, we're comparing it to like whatever the middle is, right? Like below the middle. We're talking about elevating every single person and ensuring that their needs are met. It's still up to the system to provide them with the social safety nets, with the amenities, with the means to achieve some kind of fulfillment for themselves.
So what sort of policies do you think need to be in place to prevent that or help the situation?
I think
after this segment here, I'm going to skip towards the end.
I think right across the board, flattening out education is definitely one of the first things I believe. I mean, healthcare is really important. Properly feeding people is really important. I mean, we have child poverty in this country. We have issues with food security in this country. There are millions of families that still lack access to proper nutrition. That's one of the major hurdles, even in schooling, which is not what you would think. But I mean, something as simple as like having AC in your school can yield much better results for educational outcomes in general. And I think those are some of the most glaring, most obvious systematic failures in this country.
So when you say evening out schools, do you mean things like having computers and AC, or do you mean is it
computers,
like an educational
AC,
standard?
food, higher educational standard in general? A lot of that is fixed with resources. I don't think we pay enough for our teachers, for example. I think teachers are like grossly underpaid.
All right, that segment's over. But yeah, I would agree with that. I think one good solution is not to base your local schooling budget off of the income of that area, to like fund it from income taxes, because like obviously places like San Francisco are going to have much better schools, and then rural areas in Michigan, in Arkansas, Ohio, wherever, are going to have much less funding for a lot of things. And I think like funding that on a much different like case-to-case basis, like federally, would help a lot to make sure that pretty much every school has kind of the same kind of baseline quality of education. I think that would be helpful. All right, so we're going to move to the good part here. Is Hasan a, quote, champagne socialist?
So one thing that is a common controversy that people accuse you of is the champagne socialist.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain what a champagne socialist is?
So basically he's going to say socialism is not a poverty cult. Doesn't mean you have to be poor. I do a lot of things to make my exorbitant lifestyle and high income as ethical as possible.
I think a champagne socialist is born out of the misunderstanding that like socialism implies that you have to be poor, that like you cannot be successful, and that like everyone has the same thing.
Called
like
it, brother.
Socialism is about like instituting by force the same standards of existence for everyone. You know, the gray city blocks come to mind. You know, social housing, Soviet era.
Maybe equity instead of equality.
Yeah, exactly. That was the word I was looking for. Thank you so much. It is about equity instead of equality. That's what people misunderstand about socialism. It is not about equity instead of equality at all. We don't have material equality as a baseline in this country. We don't have that at all. I'm advocating for a baseline of material equality, and I'm advocating for better worker protections, better worker rights, and less alienation.
Okay, so socialism is a baseline of material equality, worker protections,
from labor, and more autonomy, that everyone can have a say because they are a part of the puzzle, that everyone that touches a project also has some level of say in what gets done with the surplus labor. So it has
some sort of co-op, some sort of democratization of the workplace. That's socialism, apparently.
It has nothing to do with like, you know, making sure everyone is poor or whatever the fuck people think about socialism. I don't really care too much about it as far as like as far as an own. Like people will be like socialism, but you have an iPhone, or socialism because these like dumb things that you buy that are very expensive, which is true. I do. I buy fucking expensive shit from time to time. I'm an idiot, but I've always, you know, these are things that I wanted to buy. Of course, you know, it's not I don't find that to be like, I guess, a marker for your political beliefs at all. So there are levels to it, though, for sure.
Right, but to a casual viewer, that just...
So what's the level between like just your average worker and the bourgeoisie? What's the level there? What level is Hasan on?
kind of hears about you and maybe sees a few clips of you, a lot of the times it's like ranting on people, like wealthy people, and oh, people need to be taxed more. There's a privileged person. And then they look at your lifestyle and they see that you bought this fancy, $3 million house or whatever. You have a Porsche. You got you got canceled for $1,000 shirt that you wore to Coachella.
I did, yeah. That was so, God. Anyway.
But you see how this juxtaposition would confuse a lot of people and be like, this guy seems like a little bit hypocritical.
The thing is like, his whole thing is like, socialism is when you're poor. It's just like his whole thing is wearing the aesthetics of socialism, preaching socialism, putting a high moral weight on capitalists, advocating for or like unironically joking about unaliving capitalists, unaliving landlords. The streets will run red with the blood of landlords. Talking about that. Talking about forced re-education of capitalists in a socialist society. Doing all that while basically living as a cosmopolitan 2016 progressive liberal. And living a very consumerist lifestyle, making a lot of money on a platform, Amazon, and acting like he is not connected at all or involved at all in the shit that Amazon does. Like, he's been contracted with Amazon. And so that's really where the crux of the argument comes from. Not that he is just, not that we think that socialism is when you're poor and that he is rich, so therefore he can't be a socialist. It's basically that he, I think, is a capitalist realist. Like, he understands that there is never going to be a revolution in the countries where he is most popular. It's never going to happen. Ever. And so, basically, at the end of the day, he is just going to be an entertainer, as he always says that he is, and get his bag and spread propaganda, misinformation, and sell this dream of revolution to a bunch of people who are living paycheck to paycheck and listening to him, getting hope from him, all the while he just basically lives exactly as a liberal. All the stuff that he does and advocates for can be done very comfortably within liberal capitalism. The worker co-ops, the supporting unions, direct action, boycotting. It's all just democratic liberalism. But he gets to grift a little bit and take on this demographic of people who are so desperate for revolution and extreme change. And at the end of the day, he doesn't really care about that. He just wants to be entertaining. He wants to get his bag and fuck off.
Yeah, no, for sure. I understand that. But there's nothing I can do beyond the fact that, like, this is not explaining that this is not inherently contradictory to the things that I advocate for, especially considering that, like, I have no issues with being taxed more. I pay the tax rates that I do in California.
So socialism is when you pay your taxes, I guess.
That you probably know better than I do. And although the spending on those taxes is not the best, I wish that they would spend it better. I still see that as my patriotic duty, knowing that at least some percentage of that is still going to places that desperately need it, like schooling, like the roads and and, you know, whatever social amenities that are offered, the marginal amount of public transit that we do have, I guess. Overall, it's not inherently contradictory. It's not about, socialism is not about, you know, forcing people to live a certain set of standards, and but that's impossible for me to change the mindset of every American. We are all conditioned to hate socialism in general. I think I've talked about this before, but I think one of the worst things that I ever said in my career was openly admitting that, or not even like saying I'm not a socialist. I wish I had never done that. It doesn't matter what I advocate for. If I had never said that, and there are plenty of people who don't, that have almost identical values to me, that are received in a much more favorable light, as a matter of fact, celebrated for how kind and how open-minded they are.
Like who? Like, I imagine he would say, like, AOC, Bernie Sanders, maybe, but at the end of the day, they're not socialists like he is. And so, yeah, he could be all these things, which is great. But also, he does support violent revolution and gives lip service to it, at least. And he does support forcing people to live a certain standard. He supports forced re-education under a socialist society. But he wants to, like, LARP as a social democrat.
When you get hit with that socialism sticker, everybody goes, oh, Venezuela, Stalin, you want, you know, cultural revolution in this country, and or whatever they think the socialist boogeyman is. I think that was a major L for me, I guess, but because I'm so fucking stubborn, I just, you know, I can't shut the fuck up, and I should have.
The problem is that, like, he just sucks so hard at giving any sort of, like, solid idea of what he advocates for. Like, really, like, he's like Schrodinger's socialist. Like, sometimes he will be on a podcast with his tanky friends and just blatantly start spouting off tanky shit, supporting violent revolution and caping for dictatorships. But then in appearances like this, he's basically just saying, like, I'm basically just a democratic socialist. I'm basically just a sock dem, a liberal. I just want co-ops and strong unions. Nothing about that is socialist.
So
you grifted a little bit.
So making money and making more money than you need, making more money than you could possibly want, that is all a good thing. And you're saying a true socialist would argue that is totally fine. The main...
How you make your money is important.
Okay, sure.
That's the fundamental difference that people don't understand. So I don't have investments. I do have I guess, what is it, a 401k or a SEP IRA or something? I have that because, like, I want to make sure that, you know, you can't work forever, obviously. I do want to have a safety net when I inevitably stop working one day. However, I don't have investments.
Why?
So, I know, everybody always...
Yeah, because that seems silly to me, to not want to invest in a country that's given you so much opportunity as well.
I don't see it as a net positive. I think that overall, that is the fundamental difference between someone who is a capitalist or someone who makes money via capital accumulation versus someone who makes money via their labor. I make all of the money that I make off of as ethical means as I possibly can conduct. What I mean by that is, like, I have merchandise. This is my own merch, right? It's made in the United States, and it's...
Is it made from co-ops who don't make a profit? Where does the profit go?
It's made with unionized garment manufacturers.
So no, so that's capitalism.
This, of course, destroys the profit margins that I would normally have, but it doesn't matter because, like, that is the most sustainable, most ethical way that I can make this product. I do it.
That's not true under a socialist ideology. This is just capitalism. This is like progressive liberal capitalism, but this is still capitalism.
But not because like, oh, I'm going to make some extra money on the side. It's marginal in comparison to what I could be making. These are $35 t-shirts made in the United States of
But
America.
you not investing just doesn't make sense to me.
Well,
because let's just say your house, for example, $3 million bucks. I'm sure I'm rounding up. Maybe it's worth that, $3 million.
I got it for
let's just say.
$275. I don't know what it is now.
So let's just say it's worth $3 million today. How would it be any different for you to buy a $1 million house and invest $2 million in the stock market? Or instead of buying the Porsche, to buy a Volkswagen Jetta for 20 grand and the other 100, let's just say, goes into the stock market.
I would rather buy something nice.
Like what does he do with all his money? Is it just sitting in his bank account? Like he's accumulating capital and transferring it into solid things like a car, like a Porsche, like a $3 million home, like tens of thousands of dollars in his wardrobe.
Then buy something cheaper and then take the rest of the money and invest it in the stock market. But beyond that, there is a lot of money that I could be investing right now. And
what is it doing?
Nothing. Either nothing or I just spend it. Or I spend it on donations.
But in the capital appreciation, I think putting it in a Porsche.
He spends it on donations? Okay.
Is worse for the economy than you investing $100,000 into stocks. At least if it goes into the economy, you could argue that it supports businesses with investments that
other people are also invested in, that could be put into like an ETF that people have their retirements in,
and then you're taxed on that as well.
Or like he could like, oh my God, I feel like he's just too lazy or too stupid to do anything with his money. But like this is what I'm saying. Like I guess he's saying that he just like doesn't really hold on to any excess money, like he gives it all away. But like he could be creating some sort of like infrastructure where he could be investing in co-ops or in like worker-owned businesses where like maybe you have a bunch of workers that want to come together and form a business, or maybe a business is about to be sold and the workers want to buy it, but they don't have the money. Like he could be investing in funds like this to further his goals of socialism. But it's just like he's just living a very consumerist lifestyle and then acting like he has some kind of moral high ground by not holding on to his money or investing or doing anything with it. And like, I'm sure that like the donations and stuff is good, but like even he would admit that that's kind of a meme. Like he doesn't think that that's how things should be operating.
No, that if you go and sell it for a profit, it's going to go.
I already get fucking tacked on everything,
right?
Because like I'm not investing anything at all.
But in a banking account, I feel like that is the most exploitative thing, because they just go sell off loans to people, like high interest car loans and stuff like that, rather than in the stock market where people can invest in their own.
Because there's no alternative to the banking than to me putting the money underneath my pillow. But it doesn't really matter because like I said, I usually try to spend as much of it as possible either on my family or on my friends or on donations. Like I put it back into fundraising initiatives, charity, things of that nature.
Is he spending 7 figures a year on his friends and family and donations? I just like, I don't understand.
So that's the way I operate. It's probably very stupid. I know everybody always says it's like financially unsound for me to do that, but I think that is less at odds with my values than taking all of the extra money. Because aside from like the flashy shit that you just brought up, like
Mhm.
my expenses are nowhere near like the amount of money I make. I don't like I could be living a way more lavish lifestyle, I guess, than the way I do because I'm
Like, again, this just plays back into like this champagne socialist thing. It's just like, it's not that we expect you to be poor, but it's like you would expect someone as like as hardcore as Hasan has been for socialism in the past to like do something beyond just being a progressive liberal Democrat in how you push for change and what you do with your money. Like, all this excess money could be going towards something very productive. Even though like there's never really going to be full on socialism in America, like like capitalism is not going away. There's always going to be markets here, and it's going to be some sort of mixed market always. But I just like, I don't know, like maybe the socialist revolution, maybe socialism, maybe the workers, maybe the proletariat doesn't need you to be sitting at your computer 9 hours a day yapping. Maybe you could do 4 or 5 hours a day, create more thoughtful and more quality content, and then you use the rest of the time to like do something productive and build something productive towards a socialist goal. I don't know. But again, like anytime he is like talks about this, like he talked about on his podcast Deprogram, that he just sees himself as an entertainer. Like as if everyone wants him to be like socialist Jesus. But it's like, is there nothing in between? Are you just like are you just a funny guy? Are you just a guy who reads Twitter headlines? And there's nothing in between that and socialist Jesus? Like, nobody's asking you to be that. It's just so, it's frustrating.
very fortunate, and I do the things that I love doing, which is unfortunately for me, I guess, sitting in front of a fucking computer and yelling for 8 to 10 hours a day. So I do that 7 days a week. I'm in my house. So if I'm using something a lot, like my house, yeah, then, and I live with my family, I need it to be a big enough house that like they can live there as well. And that makes me happy. And then I'm good.
So what's your plan for retirement? Let's just say, you're 70 years old one day. You don't have any investments.
Mhm.
I would assume that you'd want a paid off house or something. But
Yeah, property
what
tax.
what would you do in the event that Social Security is not enough to pay for what you
Probably
need to
won't be.
live?
Well, like I said, that's why I have the SEP IRA, SEP IRA, whatever it's
SEP
called.
IRA, but I
Yeah.
doubt you'd be able to accumulate enough to replace your current lifestyle expenses within that alone. And even within that, you still have to invest.
No, my current lifestyle expenses are entirely adjusted to how much money I currently do make. I don't think I would be, flying around the world or whatever. Like I went to Australia.
Mhm.
If I don't,
I would think too that like it just seems like he has no purpose with his personal life. Like it's just enough for him to be a streamer, to be an entertainer, and that's it. Like I would just expect him to at least have like some sort of like media ready answer for these questions. That's not just like, I don't know. This just seems like it's more in line with my personal with my personal ethics and morality, and oh, it's probably stupid, but it's just like show like some conviction on it, or like have like a clear cut thing, like yeah, like I just believe that like any excess money that I get, like I don't want to hold on to it. I don't believe in accumulating capital, so that's that's kind of my thought process there. At least have something like that, or better off just like yeah, it's just so stupid. Like he could invest his money and help out American businesses, and then in 10, 20 years take all that money out and donate it to whatever charity he wants. Donate it to many different charities. Like you just do something productive with your money. I don't know.
Don't have a lot of money. I'm not going to do that. It is what it is.
I think to be able to retire where we are in Los Angeles, you need about $5 million minimum to have an income of, let's say, 125 grand a year after tax in California, 90, which is a pretty reasonable salary for where we are.
Mhm.
So that's $5 million that would need to come somewhere
Mhm.
and need to be invested to be able to give you those returns.
See, even with the SBI IRA, I still don't have a credit card, by the way.
No, I think
yeah,
we talked about this.
yeah,
Right?
I know.
You
I
said
still
you're going to
haven't-
get a credit card.
I still haven't got one.
Yeah, I think he's just stupid with money. But like like he could easy. I mean, he probably has more than 5 mil in his bank account right now. I think that it's like he'll be fine on retirement.
Even with the SBI IRA, like I was reluctant at first to get it. I didn't want to get it at all because I thought that it was like cheating, kind of, because like then I am technically accumulating capital. But like there needs to be an appropriate government substitute in normal circumstances, and there isn't one. Like there is no.
It's just so weird that he is fine like being a staunch capitalist in all these other areas, but like just investing his money is like this a bridge too far. I don't know.
Social Security is basically nothing, and then beyond that, there is no pension structure in the field that I'm in. But even if there was a pension structure, it's non-existent in most industries in general. So then it's like, well, I have no alternative, which is why I was forced to concede on that front. But beyond that, I think I will go at it for as long as I can, and when I am no longer able to, then I'll figure it out.
But even the money that's just sitting in your bank account,
I don't know how much longer his social battery's gonna last. I've heard it is a very hard job. That is the one thing though that I think lately that he said that just I get what he was trying to say. I just yeah. Streaming even just for like a couple hours a week is very draining and hard, and like thinking of good content to make is hard. So I literally can't imagine doing it 9 hours a day. That would be insane.
I'm assuming like it's probably more in alignment with your morals to be putting that in an index fund or something like that.
Well,
than
I mean,
it is to
like I
just
said,
sit-
I usually give it to like I will buy things for my family instead, like so I don't have a lot of money sitting in my bank account.
that is fascinating. This is like, I mean,
It's so
we've never
opposite
talked
of-
to anybody that does that. I mean, it's generous. It's very generous.
But it's just like so like theoretically here, I don't believe that this is true. Like he is accumulating and holding on to capital somewhere. But let's take him at his word. He is spending an exorbitant amount of money being highly consumeristic, buying things that are using exploited labor, buying things that are going to end up in a landfill every year, all the time, every month. I just don't. It just does not. I would love for someone to break it down for me, and I'm sure that there are much more articulate people who would be able to like at least give a coherent argument as to why this is like a good thing. But Hasan is not great at articulating his positions like ever.
You could spend it on us. Listen,
Grant needs a new pair of shoes.
we got
That's what
a
he needs.
Fogo de Chao. We could go there. I like,
Fogo de Chao is
yeah.
your. See, that's the thing. Like,
What's wrong with that?
no, God, Fogo de Chao.
That's all you could eat, though.
Last one. No,
Do
I
we need to
can't.
boycott them? Did they do something wrong?
No. They just. I think that
The meat
Fogo
is
de Chao.
unethically sourced.
No. I love eating meat. Don't get me wrong. There's some really good restaurants with like really high quality meat that isn't like, you know.
Shout out some restaurants right now for the people watching.
No, actually, I don't want to.
You don't
because
want it out
I'm
yourself because you
gatekeeping.
can go there.
Oh no. I will. If I go to a nice place, if I go to a nice restaurant, I'll talk about it. What, dude, this is the way I see it is like that's what the money is for. What the fuck else am I gonna do with
But
it?
no, why not donate it? Why not just give
I-
it?
I do.
Give it to people.
What do you
do
donate
that,
to? What charities?
Oh, okay.
Alright.
I do a lot of fundraising initiatives, and every single time I do, I'm donating like 50 grand, 100 grand here and there. It's strike funds
Mhm.
across the country, abortion funds. We did a fundraising for releasing aging prisoners, releasing aging prisoners from prison in New York, abortion funds in the South. Like it's just Ukraine.
Sure.
Like raised a lot of money. For earthquake relief in Turkey and
Yeah.
Syria, that was like almost, I think it was like $2 million, I think. And then same for Palestine, for Palestinian charities. So here and there, whenever I'm doing fundraising, like I will also put in my money as well into
So,
fundraising
I'm
initiatives.
curious, what criticisms of you do you think are fair?
Give me the criticism, and I'll tell you if I think it's fair or not.
Well, I'm guessing you're aware of all of the
Come on, like you don't have one like you know what all the criticisms are. You know what they are.
criticisms that people.
Yeah,
criticize.
I mean, but
Do you
But
think
what
anything stands out
criticism
as,
coming
like-
from
I feel like this is gonna be good. I'm gonna slow it down.
you? Maybe you're not even criticized on it publicly, but you think it's fair.
I get angry a lot. I think I get very emotional and I get very passionate and I get baited too frequently by people who want to get a clip off. Like they'll come into the chat.
I'm just too passionate about my job. I work too hard. I just, I just love too much. Too much of a lover. What kind of answer is this?
I have a policy of like allowing everyone to talk to me and to talk to one another. Most places, especially like a political stream, normally would not have that policy in order to be able to conduct themselves in a different way, right? To be able to control the conversation and the narrative. So that sometimes opens up an environment for bad actors where they will come in and they'll say something malicious. They'll say something that is like purposefully
Baiting you?
incendiary to bait me into like responding in an emotional way. And I do that 1,000 times a day for the same exact issue. And on the 1,000th one, I explode. And then I gave them a great opportunity to clip that, put it on Reddit, put it on Twitter, be like, this fucking guy's an asshole. Look at him. He's so mad. And I think that in spite of the odds, I need to get much better at that for sure. That is definitely a thing that I am frustrated by. I do care about that too much. And I get too mad. And then, people only see the bad stuff and they never factor in the 8 other hours of the stream.
Do you think it's a net positive though that more people are talking about you,
No.
what you stand? You think it's a negative?
No, because my line of work requires charitability.
Sure.
And like this conversation that we just had, you guys are very charitable, right? You're very open-minded to my position. You're not inherently hostile. You're not primed into being hostile to me. So we can have a normal conversation, normal back and forth, and it can be very productive. Like I think this was a very productive conversation. I hope you guys feel the same way.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people don't think that way, and a lot of people are just like primed into hating someone because they've seen bad clips or things out of context, or they've made up their mind. Like
The majority of things that Hasan has gotten in trouble over have not been out of context at all. They just haven't. I would say maybe the only one recent one is that like social battery and streaming just being more soul sucking than a normal job. Like I think that like he was making a good point on that and he was taken out of context on that. But like pretty much everything else is you go look at the context and it doesn't change anything. If anything, it makes it worse. So
like, oh, this guy's a fucking Porsche, but he's a socialist. Pff, okay. Fuck this guy. He's a grifter. Not realizing that like there are values at odds with socialism that are shocking for people like yourself, like the fact that I don't, make investments, for example. My line of work requires people to be charitable to what I have to say, that when someone is primed into hating me, it's over. I can't, it becomes
You
much
can't
harder for me
convince
to
them.
convince them.
Yeah.
That is the reason why I fucking hate when I get clipped out of context. It's just the worst thing, especially if it's like the opposite position.
I feel like I was like primed in a way to hate Hasan. Not that I like hated him at the beginning, but it's just like I heard all these things about him, and I started watching him like pretty consistently for a while, and like I just it gets worse the more context you get on him. Is just
Position of the position that I hold. And that people make up additional assertions off of that. It's very frustrating. It's already frustrating on a human level. Like, I'm sure you wouldn't like it if someone clipped you out of context and we're like, oh yeah,
Oh, it happens.
I'm sure it happens all the
And
time.
it's just the most frustrating thing.
And you guys do it in a podcast, which is like a very limited setting. Now imagine if this wasn't just a podcast, but like there's hundreds of thousands of people coming in and out and are able to like at you and like directly address you over and over again. You would probably find yourself trapped in this weird situation where you're addressing the same things over and over again 1,000,000 times.
Well, I'm sure too, when you put people in front of a camera for 10 hours a day, eventually out of those 10 hours a day for
Plenty of
years,
slips.
oh gosh, there's most people would probably have more slip ups than someone who's used to being on the camera and comfortable and
Absolutely.
moderate themselves.
And especially when it's a political subject matter that you're covering, which means that there's immediately going to be a lot of people who don't agree with you or are primed into hearing you in the exact opposite way, even if they're allies.
this whole thing is such a snooze fest. I don't care. Let's check out these questions.
Real quick game at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And then before that, we're going to ask you questions from your audience. So we actually went into your Discord and asked some fans for questions for you.
Okay.
Okay? So
Oh,
we have
here we
10
go.
questions.
I'll start. How many inches are your biceps?
I think we did this. We measured it on the podcast, on my podcast Fear, and I think it was like 18 inches. 18,
Okay.
19, I don't know.
That's pretty good.
Should pineapple be on pizza?
Not really, but I mean, it's fine, I guess, if you like it that much. I don't prefer it.
How do you get along so well with women?
With a woman?
With women.
With women?
Women. Yeah.
I don't know.
Women.
I just,
Word on the streets, you're a charmer.
am I?
Yeah.
That's what
Really?
people say.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Do you disagree?
I get along fine with most people.
Bro, if you want some like high level cringe, go back and watch like the pickup artist videos that Hasan made back in the day.
In my like immediate vicinity, I think. But as far as like women goes, I don't know. I just treat them like they're guys. I treat them the same as I would as a dude.
And they like that?
Yeah. I think, yeah. It's just like, I mean, it depends. It depends on how you
What?
It depends on how you treat men, I guess. But like if you treat them with the same level of respect and don't undermine them, I think that's like half the battle.
So just treat them like men.
That's how I do it. But also treat men better, I guess.
Treat men and women better.
How much do you pay for a haircut?
$0 because it's usually my boy Jeff Whittick. The
Free
blind
labor?
barber.
So it's free labor.
Yeah, free labor.
Hey, shout out Jeff Whittick. All right, I'm bored. Yeah, I don't know. Is Hasan a champagne socialist? I don't know. I don't really know what that's supposed to mean anymore, but from what I see, like it's just my critique is that he is living his life as a democratic socialist, as a cosmopolitan liberal, whilst condemning capitalism in some of the most heavy terms and calling for violent revolution, whilst majorly benefiting from capitalism, living an exorbitant lifestyle, knowing that there's never going to be a revolution, that there's never going to be socialism, and not really doing anything to fill in the gap there to advance his goals beyond things that he pretty much memes on other people for doing, as far as donating money and you know, supporting protests and whatnot. And to be clear, like, I don't have a problem with the way that he lives his life. I don't have a problem with him having a lot of money. For the most part, like, aside from his socialist rhetoric, we're pretty much the same. I support all those things that he supports. And I support giving money, donating. I just also don't believe in illiberalism, in seizing the means of productions violently and unaliving capital owners and re-educating all the ones that are left. I certainly don't believe selling that pipe dream to people to make money off of them and profiteering off of horrid conflicts while spreading misinformation about them and offering totally untenable solutions. Those are my issues with him. Yeah, that's it. What do you think about Hasan Piker, aka Hasanabi? All right, that's that.